It's Sunday, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Thembekile Mrototo. That can only mean it's time for Unwrap Africa on SABC News. And we're going to be focusing a lot today on what would have been the former President Nelson Mandela's birthday on the 18th of July. International Mandela Day was marked this week. We'll also bring you a wrap of the biggest stories from the African continent this week. This is Unwrap Africa. Siyaqhaqha. And a question to you this evening. The United States has recently deported about 5 foreign nationals convicted of serious crimes on U.S. soil. They've been taken to Eswatini in the last few days. What are your thoughts on the potential safety implications of this agreement between the two countries for both the deported convicts and the citizens of Eswatini? Let us know your thoughts by sending a WhatsApp message. The number is 078-459-1897. You can also find us on Facebook at SABC Unwrap Africa, and on X the handle is SABC News_TV. A wrap of the biggest stories from the continent this week. And Nigeria's former president, Muhammadu Buhari, died at a hospital in London at the age of 82. His body was then flown home and laid to rest on Tuesday in his hometown of Daura, that's in Katsina State. Still in Nigeria, opposition leader Abubakar Atiku has taken a significant step, announcing his departure from the People's Democratic Party, under which he pursued the presidency in previous elections. Voters in Togo have been encouraged to elect municipal councillors. On Thursday, they went out, but turnout at polling stations was disappointing. In Lome, the country's capital, several polling stations were sparsely populated. Cameroon's President Paul Biya, the world's oldest serving head of state at the age of 92, has confirmed he intends to run for re-election in this year's presidential vote, which will be held in October. In central Kenya, a growing number of patients are turning to bee sting therapy. The aim is to ease chronic pain and regain mobility. The stings are carefully administered as an alternative form of treatment. And finally, some news of our own. This past Thursday, the 17th of July, marked an important milestone in the history of the SABC, the corporation's news service celebrating 75 years of broadcasting. The first news bulletin went out back in 1950. Well, Madiba's legacy is our own responsibility. At least that's according to the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, who was speaking this week at the commemoration of International Nelson Mandela Day. Guterres used the address to encourage member states to carry forward the former President Nelson Mandela's commitment to peace, justice, and human dignity. His address, or the keynote address by the Nelson Mandela Foundation's Dr. Naledi Pandor, reminded the Assembly that the UN's courage that steered South Africa to freedom was a boldness that was needed today, encouraging member states to basically make good trouble. The UN Nelson Mandela Prize, conferred every 5 years, was also presented to 2 laureates from Canada and Kenya.
The UN chief referred to Madiba's extraordinary life as a triumph of the human spirit, and told the Assembly that the central lesson of his life was that power was not a personal possession to be hoarded.
Power is about lifting others up. It's about what we can achieve with one another and for one another. Power is about people. In every facet of his life, Nelson Mandela demonstrated the power of collective grassroots action to drive change and progress and deliver power to the powerless.
Former International Relations Minister and now the chair of the Nelson Mandela Foundation explained that Madiba's isiXhosa birth name Rolihlahla means troublemaker, the kind of good troublemaker the world needed more of today.
The question does arise, what kind of world would he be prepared to make good trouble for? Drawing on his life and work and his many personal reflections, we believe that it would be a just world, a world where justice does not kneel to the rich and powerful, where our collective upliftment takes precedence over individual privilege, where the benefits and burdens of our society are equally shared, where our privilege and personal biases do not sway us from being just, and where our like or dislike of someone does not hinder us from doing what is right in relation to them. President Mandela was a fierce man on matters of justice, but I don't recall one occasion where he was disrespectful or rude to another person. So this world where justice is respected and upheld is the kind of world that we are asking you to make good trouble for.
The Nelson Mandela Prize, established in 2014 and awarded once every 5 years to a male and female laureate who reflect Madiba's leadership, humility and service, was this year awarded first to Brenda Reynolds of Canada for her decades of advancing Indigenous rights, mental health and trauma-informed care.
When I first found out that I was one of the 2 laureates for this year's Nelson Mandela Awards, I was speechless and couldn't believe that I was selected. And even though I speak 2 languages, I still cannot find the words to express the depth of my gratitude and the humility I have to accept the United Nations Nelson Mandela Prize. And happy birthday to him in the heavens today, because now he is one of our ancestors.
The other laureate is Kennedy Odede of Kenya, who was also named as one of Time magazine's 2024 100 Most Influential People, who leads a grassroots movement shining hope for communities that empowers millions across the East African nation.
This is not the victory. Our future is not a single program or a new initiative. It is a new architecture of trust, where design begins with dignity and where leadership flows from those who have lived the reality they now seek to change. We are walking that long road still. Thank you to the many people in this room today and those around the world who have walked this road with me and with us. Like Madiba, we do not walk it alone. And we do not walk it afraid. Because even now, especially now, we know that he knew, and we must remind one another that no matter the gate, no matter the scroll, we remain the masters of our fate.
Living day examples of those who have taken up Madiba's parting words. It's now in your hands. Dr. Pandor also opened an exhibition here at UN headquarters overnight that showcases the work of the UN Special Committee Against Apartheid that played such a catalytic role in mobilizing the international community and UN member states in particular against the policy of racial segregation in South Africa, pointing to its example as what is possible in other long-standing struggles for equity, liberation and human rights, including the ongoing quest for independence and self-determination for the peoples of Palestine and Western Sahara. Shervin Briceby's SABC News, New York.
Well, when we continue here on Unwrap Africa, we continue with our focus on the legacy of Nelson Mandela. We'll speak to Professor Verne Harris about how he recalls the African giant. So from the dusty streets of Ulu to the halls of the African Union, Nelson Mandela's legacy stretches far beyond South Africa's borders. And this Mandela Day, we've been honouring not just his national impact, but his profound contribution to African unity, freedom, as well as justice. And today, to help us do that, we're joined by a special guest who worked closely with Madiba and whose life's work has centred on memory, justice and truth-telling. I'm talking about Professor Verne Harris, who served as Nelson Mandela's personal archivist from 2004 to 2013, directed the Archives program, in fact, for 15 years, and then later led the Dialogue and Advocacy program at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. He's also contributed to the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Currently, he serves as an adjunct professor at both the University of Cape Town and Nelson Mandela University. Professor Harris, truly an honor to have you in a week where we marked International Mandela Day, Mandela Month, in fact, for the rest of July. So a pleasure to have your time and your company today. Just to start, Madiba was widely seen as the father of South Africa's democracy, a leader who many still say embodied the true sense of reconciliation, moral courage, as well as visionary leadership. So as we continue then to try and grapple with the full extent of his legacy, how do you remember the man, especially in terms of those very conversations around justice and healing the nation?
Thank you. Good to be with you. Everyone interprets Madiba's legacy in a different way, right? For me, right at the heart of his legacy in the context of today, 2025, is that we never give up on the dream of a just society and of a just world. And we don't give up on that journey, that work that needs to be done. We keep going no matter what the challenges are.
You know, this year, I've noticed that there's less, shall we say, less fanfare, at least in terms of corporate South Africa, etc., on what would have been his birthday, the 18th of July. And I wonder if that is a reflection, perhaps, that we're starting to forget, possibly.
Well, Mandela Day as a campaign took a knock during COVID. Because it's all about getting out into community and engaging with people, especially for those who have to engage with vulnerable communities. So with COVID lockdowns, it became impossible. I think that we're back on track with the campaign. But you're right, it's something that we monitor very closely. It's too early to say, in terms of how many corporates got involved, the activations, which countries actually responded to the call. We still have to do the analysis.
And on the issue of legacy, his freedom was not won only through domestic resistance, but there was also the unwavering support of other African nations, where we know even other members of the ANC went into hiding. The Zambians took in people, Mozambique helped, Nigeria, Algeria sheltered and supported South Africa's liberation movements, and Madiba never forgot Continental solidarity, did he? And in return, he became a symbol of hope and ethical leadership for all of Africa.
Yes, I think we need to remember what happened in 1962 when he traveled through 12 African countries, because it was eye-opening for him. And he came back to South Africa with a much stronger sense of Pan-Africanism, and also the urgency for the African National Congress to take on far more radical policy positions. And it's no surprise then that when Madiba came out of prison in 1990, one of his first trips was to travel to African countries, including the ones he had visited in 1962. But let me just say that, as with all aspects of Madiba's legacy, there's a complexity, even a contradiction, because it was under Madiba's leadership in the 1990s that we saw South African capital moving into other African countries and beginning to extract wealth.
And how do we capture, use the word complexity, that complexity in its fullness? The Nelson Mandela Foundation has been very strong in trying to preserve the historical context of the Mandela story and of those around him, right, from that period of the fight for liberation. Statues we've seen, the renaming of streets we've witnessed, but then how do we deal with it and put it in a time capsule so that all the complexities and the different flavors of the story are truly preserved?
Well, I'm a little biased because, I'm an archivist. One of the things we have to do is to make the archive as widely available as possible, because it's the archive that gives us the evidence of complexity. And I must tell you, on many occasions, I would take documents, other forms of record to Madiba, ones with a certain sensitivity. And the question would always be, are you comfortable for us to put this in the public domain? And his response was pretty much always the same, is that you make that decision on professional grounds and you don't have to protect me.
And now that we're looking to the future, then Madiba has been gone for more than a decade now. The country faces many challenges that could have never been predicted or that we would have wanted to avoid during that first presidency in a democratic dispensation post-94. Plenty of hope in this country. Now, unemployment, climate change, growing inequality, eroded trust in the country's leadership and its institutions have become very real problems for this country. What kind of new activism, I wonder, and ways to inspire does that require of us?
Well, we need resilience, we need endurance, but I think we also need to understand that we're not unique. As the challenges we're going through in South Africa, we see being experienced in many other countries, especially on the continent of Africa. And I think, this is where, for me, a priority emerges, because there's a terrible irony in the ways in which South Africa is extracting wealth from other African countries, but is also putting up barriers to people, migration, people coming to South Africa. If we're going to be completely frank, we see in South Africa an Afrophobia. Now, what we're doing is very similar to what the Global North has done over generations and what we see China doing now. We need to name these things and look in the mirror.
Professor Verne Harris, on that sobering note, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Unwrap Africa. Let's move on now, as we've been reflecting on the legacy of Nelson Mandela this week. Unwrap Africa continues in a moment. Well, our question to you this evening has been about a rather controversial development on the continent in the last few days. The United States and Eswatini confirming the recent deportation of 5 foreign nationals convicted of serious crimes from the US to Eswatini. And we've been asking you for your thoughts about the potential safety implications of the agreement, both for the deported people as well as the citizens of Eswatini. Let's see what's come in on the comment line. Makiniva says they were deporting them to SA illegally using Swaziland as a gate. Mrs. B. Awesome says just post their photos and list their crimes so people are aware. Not much else you can do. Situation ZA says prisoners, serious crimes, but no security threat. All in one sentence. I wash my hands, basically. Ronald Lowe says, just let the KZN police take care of them when they escape. They're very effective at preventing repeat crimes. Paul says, why didn't they repatriate them, from the USA to their country? So why weren't they deported back home? So their home countries, in Paul, just to answer, have refused to take them in. He says they're convicted criminals and they must be treated as such so that they can continue to commit crimes in Eswatini. Bob says Eswatini is the least concerned. They know they'll be there just for a few days. The destination, with a question mark, if you will, sunny South Africa, the land of the free, with the most dangerous of unmatched rights. Gosnatim Lotro says it's clear they'll end up in South Africa. And Yimilo says, you can't provide jobs for Swati people. They're full in South Africa. You sell out greedy man selling the future of your children. You're a disgrace to Africa. South Africa must close its borders with Eswatini. And as always, a reminder that the views reflected in those comments are not those of SABC News. So Unwrap Africa producer Nonhlanhla Mthembu has again been out and about, basically exploring African cuisine as she does every week. And this time, she's discovered Hombaze. It's an African cuisine restaurant that caters for, naturally, African countries.
We took a culinary journey to Hombaze African cuisine, where the rich flavors and aromas of Africa come alive.
And it was born out of the desire to give Africans their own food, and also to give foreigners who, South Africa is a country visited by everyone, to give people who visit South Africa a taste of the unique African experience. And we crafted the menu in such a way that wherever you're from on the continent, whether you're from Congo or from Zimbabwe or from Nigeria or from Zambia.
We were struck by the vibrant decorations in this place. We asked Ken Ayere to share the inspiration behind this look and feel.
I'm very specific about that, and they come from all over the continent. All over the continent. This, as you can see, these ladies from East Africa, that is Southern Africa more of, and that's general African painting. We try to represent the continent.
As we chatted with Ken, the senior chef was busy in the kitchen preparing for us some of their famous dishes.
African cuisine is the best. I can tell you that with emphasis. You can hear how I told you. It's the best. There's nothing like it. We use those spices and condiments that are the secrets, mark that word, the secrets of the good health of traditional Africa.
And this one is also fried plantain with carapace fish. We also call it Thompson fish. Thank you, you are welcome. Enjoy your meal.
And on that tasty note, that's how we come to the end of this week's edition of Unwrap Africa. We're back with you 8 o'clock on SABC News Channel 404 next week. We're also on YouTube, by the way, if you want to go back and have a look at all our old or previous programs. SABC News YouTube page is where you can find all the Unwrap Africa coverage, in fact, that we've brought you over the last few months. I'll see you back here 8 p.m. next week. Bye-bye.